Welcome and welcome back to the Stash. Today we're reviewing the amazing Spider-Man issue 26 that came out just the other day, and somehow it gets worse. So let me explain. So firstly, this issue starts off with a little flashback from 9 months ago as we see Kamala Khan apply for the job at Oscorp. Then after the first page, we go straight back to the present in New York City, where Rabin the Emissary is there to kill Mary Jane. Norman Osborn is also there in his new gold armor, and as well as Miss Marvel being there. Rabin also calls Mary Jane the Scarlet Woman a lot, especially in the last issue, and basically he needs to kill her so he can become a god in a sense in this universe. Or at least something like that. It's complicated, weird, and doesn't make sense, and a horrible story. Then a massive dragon just randomly appears because Rabin prepared for this entire thing apparently. Then all of a sudden we go back to more horrible, annoying flashbacks. This time we see why Paul punched Peter Parker in the first place. What was the meaning of it? Because I'm pretty sure in previous issues they showed like just a pure panel of it, just the panel, and it was just sort of random. But now we actually see why. So Peter bursts through Mary Jane and Paul's home, and basically is trying to tell Mary Jane that he's discovered that Paul is not who he seems. That's right, Paul is not just your average guy with glasses, he's actually the son of the Emissary. And as Peter is exposing Paul to Mary Jane, he gets fed up with rage and says that's enough, as he punches Peter right in the jaw. Paul then continued to shout the Emissary was my father. I trusted him, helped him do his work, not knowing what he really wanted. And by the time I found out, it was too late. There was no one in my world to save the day. Peter then says that you have been lying to everyone this entire time, only for Mary Jane to say, no he hasn't, not to me. Peter simply replies with, you knew? Then Mary Jane says, I know everything about him. I've seen his guilt, his pain. I know that it's part of what makes him a good man. Sound familiar? Now, I don't know about you guys, but when I read this, a part of me just got so angry that Zeb Wells is now trying to use that Peter Parker quality into Paul now, just so Mary Jane has a reason to like him. Now, in the next page, Rabin refers to the kids as chains and says the chains have served their purpose. And I think you know where this is going. If you've seen Twitter, if you've seen the leaks, every Spider-Man fan was so happy. I've never seen so many people happy for children to die, but the kids are no longer a part of the comics. They have disappeared, and a part of the Spider-Man world has healed, and I can't believe I'm happy about this. After being tortured for nearly, over a year now, it's so good to see Paul finally experience pain. I can't believe this. And now I guess as a natural response to Mary Jane realizing that she's losing her fake kids, she's filled with rage and uses her newfound powers, which I think is a terrible choice for Mary Jane, and just sort of takes away anything that was special about her character in the first place, and tries to kill Rabin. And this whole page, this whole next few pages to me, is simply cringe. I cringe reading it. I think it's horrible. Mary Jane having powers is such a dumb thing. She does not need powers. She's a character who is special on her own, and is one of them that just doesn't need this. And it just shows everything that's wrong with these modern comics. And a lot of this stuff, a lot of the new, story elements that they've implemented always contradicts the old stuff, all the classic and good stuff. Stuff like One More Day, where Peter couldn't handle losing Aunt May. Where we've seen many times in the 90s, when he even got the chance to bring Aunt May back, he declined it. He was at peace with it. He knew that Aunt May was in a happier place. Now Mary Jane needs powers to be strong, where back in the 90s, she didn't need powers. In fact, there was multiple occasions where she could actually hold her own against villains or just simply bad people. But I digress. The next page we see the Fantastic Four. They're back, and Spider-Man and the FF make amends, so I guess that's something that we can be happy about. I mean, it is sort of weird how Mr. Fantastic sort of just went blindsided about the whole thing and said you've been a good friend for many years and that's all that matters. Even though Spider-Man was trying to beat up your friends, your brother-in-law and your close mate, and steal equipment from you, but whatever. As the book gets closer to the climax of the story, Reed Richards finds a way to defeat the monster, and with the help of the Human Torch, kills it. And then for whatever reason, Zeb Wells wanted to put more salt on the wound, where Miss Marvel says, I promised your boyfriend to Mary Jane, and then she says, Spider-Man isn't my boyfriend. Thanks, Zeb Wells. I mean, you just constantly listen to the fan base, and it just shows in your work, it really does. And then all of a sudden, Mary Jane gets killed by Rabin, or so it seems. I mean, to us, it looks like that Mary Jane died, and even to Peter, because Peter has to suffer a bit more in thinking that the love of his life is now dead. And of course, as Kamala Khan has taken her final breath, Paul has to appear Of course he does. Why is this guy even here at this point? He tells Mary Jane that the kids are gone. They share a hug. You know, who really gives a shit? And then the book ends with Miss Marvel dying in the hands of Peter Parker. Wow. Seriously. Wow. What a shit ending to one of the worst Spider-Man's... No. The worst Spider-Man story I've ever read in my entire life. Now, my views on Kamala Khan are completely irrelevant to this story. It is the worst choice to kill her off in a Spider-Man book where she was barely in it. And doesn't even make sense for the story. It should have been Paul or something. Somehow, Zeb Wells has made me get angry at a character dying for a character that I don't even care about. And of course, this is comic books. She's gonna come back in like 3 months anyway, so what's the big deal? And am I supposed to feel bad for Mary Jane that the magic made-up kids got erased? Because I'm not. It's stupid enough that they were originally supposed to be her actual flesh and blood kids with Paul, and it's still just as stupid we're supposed to see them as some great tragic loss that will be a part of MJ's life. I also find it funny that Paul interrupts Kamala's death just to talk about the kids who nobody cares about. And for God's sakes, the villain made no sense at all. The entire 26-issue story was just nonsense. It was just nonsense for the sake of bending things to the writer's will. This wasn't a story, it was an agenda-driven nonsense, and Kamala was shoehorned in with the hope of selling books for shock value. She didn't fit in, wasn't developed, it didn't make any sense for this book. And I already talked about how dumb the kid subplot was. There was just so many issues just to put a wedge between Peter and MJ. You can tell that this final story was changed a lot and the issue was supposed to fix the hate, but instead created new ones. How in the world is this supposed to be the most heartbreaking issue of Amazing Spider-Man in 50 years? Really? For a character that appeared in like 10 panels at best through the entire run? I have a feeling that Mary Jane was the one that was supposed to be killed, but then they quickly try to do damage control after seeing the reaction of the readers to the rest of the run. And a quick editor note, I just did some research on Kamala Khan, literally just a Google search, because I really don't know anything about the character. I don't care about the character at all. So it turns out that she actually can shapeshift and has a healing factor. And apparently that healing factor just doesn't work in the Spider-Man book, so she can have a forced death in a comic that she was shoehorned into. So, whatever, man. This whole thing is just so shit. And of course, Peter doesn't even get to be the one that defeats the main bad guy at the end of the story. Not only does this book continuously disrespect Mary Jane, but it shits on Peter so much. In the earlier issues, he'd get his ass kicked by Tombstone constantly. He'd make him scream in pain. And he didn't even get a chance to beat the main villain of this horrible story. Obviously, the disrespect between Mary Jane and Peter's relationship is one of the biggest talking points of this, as well as just the way they treat Mary Jane in general. But I think what's been lost as well is the fact that Spider-Man doesn't even act like Spider-Man anymore. Zeb Wells kills every single character he touches. It's incredible. But that is it for today. If you have enjoyed, please like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already, because here any support means so much. I'd love to hear what you guys think of this entire story down below. If you somehow like it, or if you like the majority and like myself hate it, just we can start a conversation down there. Thank you guys for watching, and see you in the next one.